Hi there, everybody on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. Welcome back to the first Coffee and Connect chat of this year. And I am with my lovely friend Barbara Byrne, who's an author and a co-author and a life coach, amongst many other talents that she has. And this evening, and for this whole season of Coffee and Connect, I will be talking to people who I am inspired by through their stories of how resilient they have become through their challenges and the inner strength that they have gained, it is evident to me today and through this whole pandemic that we're experiencing, that these are skills that are standing to them. And it's something I think that we can all benefit from. And so resilience is really about the ability to bounce back or to recover quickly from adversity, setbacks, stress, challenges. So it's really, the question is it something that's innate, or is it also a skill that we can develop? So that's what we're going to talk to Barbara about this evening. And Barbara, thanks for joining me on Inner Happy to talk about your story of resilience.
Thanks for having me, Sue. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. I know that we've met, but we've never actually met in person, but we've met a number of times over the past year or so. So I suppose, where do I begin? I suppose if I was to think about my challenges, that thing of feeling stuck in your head, stuck in your life, and feeling like there's no way out. And I suppose I know we have a couple of things in common, hence how we ended up
connecting so
in the first place.
Yeah. Barbara, can I just ask you, when did you start feeling this?
Oh, sure.
When you talk about feeling stuck.
It was many years ago. I used to think it was grief and not coping with my brother's death. And then I realized it was how unhappy I was in my marriage. So I suppose I could say I blamed the other person, but then I realized that I had my part to play too. Mm-hmm. So I would have been much younger, much younger. Yeah, probably in my mid to late 20s, really.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I say stuck, I was unhappy, but to the outer world, I hid that. So I felt like, well, how will people believe me? I suppose I worried a lot about what other people thought. How would they believe that you could be so unhappy? Because I suppose from the outside looking in, they could see, I had a decent enough job. So did my husband at the time. We had 2 children. They seemed happy enough. We got to go on holidays. We had a nice home. And I suppose I realized as time went on how I looked outside for that happiness and realized, the things I was looking out there for, they weren't actually making any difference.
Yeah, so it can seem like you have everything that should make you happy.
Yeah.
But it wasn't fulfilling you. But did you recognize that? Or were you thinking, why am I not happy when I seem to have everything?
Yeah. So I didn't recognize it for quite some time, a very long time. It was probably my mid-30s, because I kept questioning, is it me? Or what is it? Or where is it coming from? Or why do I feel this way? But I also didn't feel that I could actually ask somebody, because I was like, they're going to think I'm mad. And eventually, I suppose I had an out of character experience, is all I could call it, in my job, where I just one day, I can't even remember what was said to me, but I know that one particular day something was said. There was probably a build-up over time. I'd been there for 11 years and I just flipped, and whatever was said, I walked out crying. It wasn't even a boss, or senior management or anything along those lines. But the interesting thing was, as I walked out, And I say when I rang and told my boss, and other people were then going, oh, I could see this happening. I'm like, why did nobody tell me? Do you know? But the big thing that I heard was, you weren't ready to hear it. So this thing of
Okay.
I had to realize for myself that I was stumbling. But I also had to realize that I was the only one who could do something about it. That was the beginning of it.
What do you think if people, how do you think in that state of mind, if people had pointed it out to you, what they thought or how they felt that, Barbara, we don't think you're,
well, I suppose I was probably so angry that I wasn't ready to hear it. Angry with myself for not knowing what it was all about, but also for not having the balls basically to do something about it.
The courage and maybe the strength.
Absolutely both. I realise now it's both, because it was for fear of, what would the parents say? What would the family say? How would I cope? How would I manage on my own with 2 children? How would I pay the mortgage? Oh my God, I have to go back to work full time. And right at that time, I can tell you, I didn't realise I was actually having a breakdown.
Yeah.
But I always say it led to the breakthrough. Eventually.
Yes, I know.
Eventually.
I know. I know.
So I remember being sent, being put on medication, being sent from GP to, the health service, then to a psychiatrist. And I remember ringing my mum about 6 months in going, why do I still feel so bad? Why is this black cloud not lifting? I couldn't understand what was going on. And that was probably the first time I started to look at what other things I could do. And I remember going for a week's retreat and being introduced to things like meditation and journaling. But the interesting thing is, it was a few years later before I realized how beneficial those things were. Because I still wasn't open to hearing it, because I was scared of taking the lid off, because I didn't know if I could put it back on. I was afraid of what might come out. So what, because I know now you have done a lot of personal development work. So the trigger was somebody in work, something triggered you, right? Yeah.
So that you just had it enough. And I suppose it sounds like that was the starting point to moving on. But then it took a lot, though, for you you went for the retreat. That was, say, the next step.
Yeah.
But like that, you went through the practices or whatever they suggested. Was that beneficial at the time, or what was your next step?
It was beneficial at the time, but I think I was still caught up in the whole story and wasn't ready to actually make the break. And once I eventually got to that point of, I can't live like this anymore, I can't be stuck in this marriage like this anymore. And once I actually voiced it, and it was a very random, I was always a new year, new me person. And it now, like, every time I think about that, it makes me cringe. But that's exactly what happened. At New Year's Eve, my ex came home from work, giving out again about something, and I just went, I can't do this anymore. I have enough.
That's it.
And then I suppose I was thinking, I don't want my girls to grow up thinking this is what a relationship is about. I don't want them to be seeing, the anger, the frustration, the hurt, that realization that we both had our own problems, but neither of us could see a way out. So someone had to be strong enough to be able to say enough. And it just happened to be me that said it first. That's all it was. And I know initially, as I said, there was a lot of blame, but I realized I very much had my own problems and my part to play as well. So at that time, then, I suppose, as I started to work out being on my own and what it was like while I was kind of working through it, I had used food and drink as my crutch, and I was very overweight. And once I started to lose weight, then all the mind stuff started to come, because I realized how much more help I needed. I needed to get to the root of why I was comfort eating and why I was comfort drinking. And that's when really the personal journey began, which was probably about 11 years ago, 10 or 11 years ago. And it started with reading a book where it was suggested, Louise Hay, How to Heal Your Life, the chest infections that I continually got, and the tonsillitis. And when I read into it, it was suggesting that it was not being able to say what I needed to say. And to be honest, I don't suffer with any of those things now. Honesty is one of my values, and it might get me into trouble, but I do think it pays off in the long run. Yeah.
Yeah. So being able to, that's fantastic. So for you, being able to verbalize what you actually wanted, where you're at, probably got it out of your head and brought it into the light of day. And once something is in the light of day, it's like it becomes clearer, and then you can actually do something about it, I suppose. But that takes courage. And so from that point, you started to do a lot of work on yourself.
Yeah. I suppose I was reading books, educating myself, doing courses all around personal development. And then when I started to lose my weight, it was a couple of years later then that I found Slimming World. So it was like there was a shedding of something happened automatically. And when I realized, oh, there's actually something happening here, I thought, I really need to do something proper about this. So it was like I automatically started to lose weight as I shed I suppose it was like a releasing of the pain and all of the other things that came behind it. And then when I found Slimming World, which was a couple of years after that, I really started to lose weight. But that's when I realized, oh my God, the emotions behind why I ate and why I drank. Because I started to delve further into it, it unlocked even more. And it all was part of how I was brought up, what I was led to believe. And I understand that we all have our family history, and our parents are only doing the best based on what they know, what they were taught. But I kept thinking, there has to be more. There has to be more. And that's what made me delve deeper. And as I realized I wasn't having anxiety attacks anymore, I wasn't suffering with depression, I didn't need medication. Like when I used to go to my counselor, she used to say, you think you're coming here for this, but you always end up, there's something else behind it. But it was more like she became somebody who I would nearly run things by. And I remember when she told me that she was retiring, this was probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I had gone back again because I was just having a bit of trouble with something that was bugging me. And I remember going back to her and she was like, I'm retiring in 6 months, but you haven't needed me for years. I am your crutch. And I was a bit like, whoa. But we did a whole releasing thing. We had a plan, a slow but sure plan over that 6 months, how I was going to detach from her, because I knew I was starting to use her as a little crutch every now and again. And once I did that, because I had a few ideas in my head, I thought maybe I could be a counselor. And then I thought, I'm too emotional. I would probably be sitting in the corner saying, come here, I give you a hug. And that's when I discovered my own coach. And I suppose the big difference between coaching and counselling is with counselling, you're brought back into it, but with coaching, it's about helping you to move forward. And I do believe absolutely counselling has its place 100% and had a huge positive impact for me. But what I loved about coaching was it helped me to see that I didn't need to go back to find a better way. So it was through that I shared my story in a book, Voices of Courage, where I went further back into where really the issues began after losing my brother 3 weeks before I got married. So we had a challenge from the very, very beginning, do you know? So it was from then that my personal development really became so much more and so much deeper. So I was questioning all the time. And I remember saying, and I know we've both worked with the same business mentor, and I remember saying to the first coach that I had, oh, I need to get the piece of paper. And she was like, no, you don't. Your life experience is your piece of paper. But for me personally, I knew it was going to take my journey on another level. And by God, did it take my journey on another level. Just a better understanding of other people and of treating the person as a whole person and understanding that they have everything they need within them. They just don't know it. And
But just
I
need to
often
tap
have
into
to,
it. Yeah.
yeah, and I often have to remind myself of that when I'm having an off day. And I think that's a big thing as well, to understand. And I actually only put a post on my own page yesterday because I was having a very off day yesterday. But I think it's important for people to understand that just because you're on a personal development journey and you work helping other people doesn't mean you've got it all sussed. That you still have moments of, oh my God, what the hell has hit me today? But I think it's because we're so much more aware of our emotions and in tune with our emotions, and the energy that other people can take or from you, or if you allow it, that you bounce back. And that's the big thing, is the bounce back ability, as I call it. You're able to bounce back so much quicker. Like, I was on the floor yesterday, I'm very emotional. Just all of a sudden, this whole thing of, this is a fourth lockdown for me in Kildare, and I'm the furthest away from all my family, and it's starting to really bug me.
Yeah.
But I will say the connections that I've made through being online in the past year are the thing that has sustained me. Being able to still work, being able to still develop and grow as a person and as a coach. So it's that resilience, as you said at the very beginning, but the bounce back ability, is, as I call it, knowing that you will have an off day, you're human, but knowing that you've got the skills and the tools. And that's what I did. I wrote about it, I burnt it, I spoke to a couple of friends who know and understand where I'm coming from. And then I did the thing I love to do the most. I took myself for a very long walk up in the Curragh for a couple of hours, so that I could just bring myself back down again.
Having that headspace. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So basically, Barbara, that's an amazing story, and well done to you, because it takes a lot of courage to dig deep and transform your life, as I know you have. And it's an inspiration. And so for people now who are struggling, who maybe haven't had to struggle before with some challenges, everyone in the world has some struggles, stress, adversity, disruption going on right now. If they haven't developed these skills of resilience, to tap into that bounce back ability, what would your top tips be, having come through what you did?
Okay.
To support themselves? I know you mentioned speaking, writing, getting that headspace. What are your top tips? Because I promised now we would stay for 20 minutes. I'll have to check what time it is.
We're almost there.
Okay, so
well, I would say
tips, Barbara.
First of all, it's to go at your own pace and to take small steps, but to reach out so that you know you're not on your own. A big thing that really, really helped me was to be able to forgive myself first, because I used to carry a lot of mammy guilt. Oh, my girls, have their mammy on their own. I don't like to say single parent anymore, because I learned from another mutual friend, the other Sue, independent mammy. It's not easy. It's not easy being an independent mammy, especially when they're young. Thankfully, mine are older now and have their own resilience built in too. So it's to not give yourself a hard time. The big thing for me is to disconnect from negative people. I did lose some friends, but if they were real friends, they would have understood I needed them more as I was coming out the other side than I did when I was poor, desperate, single mammy, Barbara. So getting outside then would be the next one. I found great peace in being able to just switch off, whether it's to listen to something that's going to keep you calm, positive podcasts. There's so many different tips that I could give, but probably the biggest one is to give yourself some time out, a walk in nature, or by the sea, whatever is your favorite thing to do, because that will ultimately give you that calm. So even just to take 5 minutes, and it could be just 5 minutes to sit and read a book. Don't get caught up in negativity and other people's stories and other people's drama, because you can easily get sucked in. So being able to take a step back is absolutely powerful.
Yeah, and be aware, be mindful, be aware of who and what you're surrounding yourself by, because that's very it makes a huge
Yeah,
difference.
and
Not it
I
kind of
know
does.
mindfulness is huge for you, and especially I have to say since the beginning of lockdown, I was very lucky to have found a daily mindfulness class with a group of like-minded, mostly women. There's a couple of men, but mainly women,
Yeah.
and that has been powerful, powerful. So I'm up every
Mm.
morning at 8 o'clock. I can't always stay for the engagement afterwards, but for that 20 minutes, half an hour, I can sit in silence
Yeah.
and acknowledge whatever, because I think that's the big one, acknowledging how I'm feeling and
Acknowledge.
not pushing
Yes.
down until eventually, like it did with me, it erupted.
It explodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And one quick thing there is, how did you you said like forgiving yourself,
Yeah.
you mentioned there being able to forgive yourself. Are there any have you any advice on how
Yeah.
you went through, how did you do that so
Well,
successfully?
I discovered the whole Pono. It's a mantra.
Oh
It's
yeah,
an old Hawaiian healing technique, but it's very powerful. I love you. I thank you. Please forgive me.
please
And
forgive me.
I can't remember the last line. It's just gone out of my head. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank
Yes.
you. I love you. So you're basically saying to yourself, I'm sorry for, allowing whatever it is to have impacted me. Please forgive me for how I've responded to that or reacted as I used to always do. And please forgive me and thank you for this lesson. Because I think that's the big one, and that's what I love now. Everything I experience, I try and take. I will say try, because I'm not always on the ball, but I do try and look at, well, what has this taught me? And as much as I might be very emotional or caught up in it at the time, I can then say, no, hold on, you need to step back here and think, what is this sent to teach me right now? And that's a powerful lesson. But with the forgiveness, the writing, it's not that you're saying to somebody who hurt you, it's okay. What you're saying is, I'm no longer letting it have power over me. And that is powerful.
Exactly. So it's not about condoning exactly what the other person or parties have done. It's freeing yourself from what has happened.
Absolutely.
So,
with no guilt and no shame.
Exactly. Yeah. And so for you, I know you do. So you're Barbara Byrne coaching, and you do a lot. I know one day I am absolutely going to join you in Kerry. You do your Camino walks. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, Barbara, can you tell us how?
Yeah, my coaching page is Coach Barbara Byrne, so it's easy enough to find. Or they can message me on Facebook, Barbara Byrne. My profile picture is, I suppose I've got curly hair, but curled, not curly, wavy hair in my profile picture. Or they can do it through you.
Yes,
through your page.
I will put your contact details in the comments.
Brilliant.
And I'll just see if anybody has anything, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. Thanks for everybody joining us this evening, or if you're watching on replay. It's great to have these techniques and learning from people who have been through so much and how they coped. And having, I think, Barbara, also having your go-to list of what works for you, that is a helpful coping mechanism versus living in autopilot and automatically turning to food, alcohol, drugs, whatever it might be. As we know, they're a quick fix. They make you feel good in the short term, but long term, they are not going to support you. And they will depress your coping skills. Absolutely. Your resilience will be depressed. So having that go-to list, I think of helpful coping mechanisms that work for you. Having that list, and even if you don't feel like it, I always say, for the next 2 minutes, if I'm not really drinking now, which because it's just not suiting me, I say for the next I say for the next 2 minutes, I'm going to do something else or do something else. And then you get through the next 2 minutes and the next 2 minutes. That it's not like saying all out, I am not having that anymore. Just step by step, I feel can help you get over that hump of, craving or really wanting something that isn't maybe
Yeah.
supporting your well-being. Personally, I have found that useful.
Yeah.
And having your schedule in your day, like you said, of few minutes of mindfulness, of outdoor activity, vital. Hey,
Even if it's just a song that you can dance to for 5 minutes, that you know,
yes,
whatever your power, well, yeah, power
whatever
song, because
your,
that's what I call it.
yes,
And like my favorite is Queen, Don't Stop Me Now. Just put that on.
yeah,
It's about 4.5 minutes long, and have a good old bop around the house like nobody's
yes,
watching.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And having that go-to list of things, though,
Yeah.
because when you're starting to get down and become affected, we know that that stressed out part of your brain can take over. So you're not
Yeah.
even able to see or focus on what you know is going to support you. And sometimes when you have it written in front of you, and then you know that you just got to do those
Yeah.
things, and it will have a positive effect.
Absolutely. Your
Yeah.
own little toolbox that you can tap into at
That's
any
it.
time.
Exactly. And this is the perfect time to practice. And that's what they
Absolutely.
are, Barbara, right? They are practices that they have become part of your way of being. But
Yeah.
it's a continual journey. It's not like you can learn and then that's it. You can just move on. It's about making these practices part of your day, that it
Yeah.
becomes your way of being. So you are supporting yourself to be more resilient, to be able to cope better, and tap into your own inner strength.
Absolutely. And as we said
Yeah.
earlier, to be able to bounce back quicker. So
Bounce
it's
back.
knowing that
Exactly.
you're not always going to be in top form, and
Yeah.
you know, there will be days where things are more challenging, and especially now. So you know that if you fall, well, who can you reach out to? And I always say that with a group of women that I would be in touch with, it's great that there's always one is on the top, no matter what way it goes. So it
True.
means that there's always one of you ready to pull up the other two. And
Yeah.
that's
Very
powerful. And
powerful.
that's the same as with my Caminos. Everybody's at their own pace. So there's
Yeah.
always someone who wants to walk slower and talk. There's
Yeah.
always someone that's
Yeah.
kind of wanting to surge on. And
Yeah.
then there's the in between. But
Yeah.
it'll change from day to day depending on your energy, your sleep. So it's
Exactly.
exactly the same thing, but that's what I love
Exactly.
about it. It's
Yeah.
being all pulled together
Mm.
because you're united in how you're feeling. So
Exactly.
it's
And not
great.
comparing yourself to anybody
No,
else, because everyone's on a completely different journey and
absolutely.
nobody knows yours. And being able to have the courage to reach out and know that everybody goes through challenges. You're not immune. Nobody is immune.
Exactly.
And there's no shame in saying, hey, I need help, or can
Yeah.
you support me? Because I feel it's the strong one that reaches out. And life
Yeah.
is too precious and too short not to. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Our mental health is so precious.
It's
And
everything. Where are you without it?
yeah, and it took me a long time to get to
Mm.
that. And my mum even jokes
Yeah.
about my brother slagging me about hugging trees, but I don't care because it works for me.
I
And
also
when I'm
love
on my
hugging.
own, I hug them backwards.
Yeah. And they don't talk, well, they talk back in their own way, but it's
It's
so
the
precious.
energy.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
is energy.
yeah,
Absolutely. Do
yeah.
what works for
Do
you,
what
but
works for you.
we
Exactly.
advocate tree hugging.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, Barbara, thank you so much for joining me this evening. It's been short and absolutely delightful. And thanks
Thank
to
you.
everybody who's joined us. And we will chat again.
Thanks
And I
very
will
much.
pop Barbara's details into the comments.
Brilliant. Thanks a million.
Okay.
Thank
Bye.
you.